Joining us now are David and Hazel Brief, parents of Yona, of blessed memory. Shalom.
Shalom.
Yona was injured on October 7th, and he survived more than a year. First of all, please a few words about the incident and his story of bravery and heroism.
Well, Yona's story actually starts in May 2023. It's actually his first injury when he was in Tulkarm, and a pipe bomb exploded on his legs, and we got a call at 2 a.m. to meet him at Baileyton Hospital. He was hospitalized and had operations throughout the week with serious injuries and was released home. He took himself through a whole rehab program and did not actually need to go back to the Army at that point. But Yona's a really good boy and a good soldier, and his team in the Army very much wanted him back. Yona thought a lot about it and decided to go back, even though he didn't have to. And he returned just before the 7th of October to his unit.
Yeah, his first Shabbat on the high alert was on Simchat Torah. So he was there and in the base in Mishor Adumim, and his unit got the call at 7 a.m, and they quickly got dressed and went into the armored jeep and headed down towards Sderot, not knowing exactly what they were getting into.
And what do you know about what happened on that morning of October 7th?
Well, he didn't stay in Sderot very long. They went to Kfar Aza very, very quickly. There is a member of his team who has family in Kfar Aza, so they were getting updates very early about the terrorists that had infiltrated. Nobody knew numbers, but it didn't really matter at that point. They were just going. And they went directly into Kfar Aza at that point, after stopping in Sderot. When they were in Kfar Aza, they went house to house to help release the families. The families had already, at that point, several hours, had been in their safe rooms, their mamad. And the way they do it is they go in pairs. So 2 soldiers go, and then another 2 soldiers in between the houses. And his commanding officer and his best friend were in front of him. They jumped, we call it jump, or went between the 2 houses, and they were immediately shot. His commanding officer, Ben Bernstein, of blessed memory, and his best friend, Amir Fisher, of blessed memory, fell. His commanding officer, Ben, called out on the communication devices and said, "I've been injured," and Yona, as a medic, a combat medic, ran to save him. He began to drag Ben's body, and then he was hit with 13 bullets.
Yeah, all over his body, in his head, in his arms, his back, and of course his legs.
And since then, for more than a year, you experienced a roller coaster of emotions, of hope, fears, of happiness, of concern.
I think we were always hopeful. I think Yona proved from day one that he was a fighter. He was actually, before he made it to Sheba Hospital, placed on the list of the dead with Ben and with Amir. The Army thought he died. They thought he had no chance of survival. But Yona's a survivor, and he survived a 4-hour evacuation and was able to get to Sheba Hospital. He stayed awake, got to Sheba Hospital, and actually spoke to the doctors before they started to operate on him.
Yeah, the evacuation itself was under fire. So when the first vehicle came to rescue him from the home in Kfar Aza, they shot an RPG, and a friend of his was also injured from that RPG.
But there was, sorry.
Yeah. So and then they were able to take him to Tzomit Tzad, and at Tzomit Tzad they thought they were going to meet a helicopter, but there was a ambush at that intersection, and the helicopter was not able to land, and he survived that ambush on the side of the road. And imagine, he's sitting there, his legs are bleeding, he had put a tourniquet on both legs and on his arm while helping other soldiers with their wounds, and he's sitting there on the side of the road waiting for this ambush and hoping to survive this ambush, and then they were able to take him on the hood of a Hummer to the next stop, where he met an ambulance that took him to yet another place where he got met up with a helicopter. And the helicopter was going to take him to Soroka, but it was very crowded already at Soroka, so they, somehow, that we're not exactly sure, but someone in the helicopter made the decision to go straight to Sheba. So he went to Sheba, and he got there at around 2 in the afternoon, and they took him directly into the operating room.
And this was a year full of miracles.
Yeah, Yona had endless miracles, and and we were there to see them all. So many times, doctors would say, "You know what? This is it. Yona's not going to make it." And we decided, as parents, we didn't really have a lot to do other than to pray. So we started sending out Tehillim psalms to anybody we knew. And this happened throughout the course of the year. Countless times, Yona would be at the edge of almost death, and miraculously, he would just get out of it. Whether it had to do with MRI and brain scans and liver and kidneys and endless bleeding.
Pneumonia.
And 11 pneumonias. So there's a tremendous amount of miracles that we saw. That Yona was so strong and so determined to live. And, when you think about an ICU unit, it's a place, unfortunately, where a lot of people do die. And Yona, for 417 days, brought life there. He was alive. We had sushi nights, karaoke nights. His friends came. We had pizza and hamburgers, and he did drawing. He did physical therapy, occupational therapy,
and Netflix.
Netflix and movies. We would go out to a deck for pre-Shabbat singing.
Now, despite this situation, you weren't prepared for this tragic end.
No, and neither were the doctors. Nobody. And I mean, all the top doctors got together the day before Yona passed away, and they went over his entire file and said, let's see if we've missed anything. What have we missed? Is there anything we need to do? Because according to his blood test and what they were seeing, Yona should not be alive. It was not the blood test of being humanly alive. And they realized there was nothing that they could add to his treatment, that they were treating everything they could with antibiotics and different medications and machines. But nobody was willing to say that Yona's not going to get through this. Nobody, not one doctor was willing to say, you know what?
People believed in him.
Totally believed in him. And we did. And Yona believed in him. And so I think it was really a shock. We really believed, and we talked about it all the time, that in just a bit, Yona, you're going to rehab. In just a bit, Yona, you're going to go to America and get your legs. In just a bit, you're going to be swimming. It was very, very real for all of us.
I noticed that during the funeral, you indeed talked about the tragedy, but mainly about Yona. What do you want us to know about your beloved and precious son?
I think he loved life. He just lived life to the fullest all the time. He didn't waste any time. He was always looking forward to the next adventure, the next challenge. And, that's, and with his, engaging smile and all of his friends and all the people that he touched, it's just, we're starting to understand who he was to so many people.
Yeah. And Yona's one of these great-looking guys. He worked out a lot. He was super fit, and he could have been one of those, really snobby kids in junior high and high school that, did not want to be friends with anybody and just hang out with the popular crowd. And it was so not Yona. Yona was everybody's friend, and we just hear countless stories about how Yona was brought to this group of people, and just to hang out with him. And Yona was everybody's friend. Nobody was ever angry with him.
He would bring people into his circles.
Yeah, and he loved them. And every person felt that they were Yona's best friend. So I think he gave a lot of devotion to friendships.
But with all of the severe pain and anguish that he was in, he taught people to value life and to value every little thing. Every little thing that we do, like sitting down and standing up and eating and swallowing and hearing and talking, all of those things were taken away from him at some point. And he showed us how you could still live without those things, and then also showed us, that there's a lot of things that we just take for granted, and that we need to be thankful for all of those things.
David and Hazel, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.